changed a lot, I think, inside me, like getting more self-confident, not doubting my skills so much anymore. And it gave me kind of peace with myself, I think, or more peace, let's say that.
Welcome to the Passages from the Heart podcast, a podcast featuring real people sharing real stories about adventure out on the water. I'm your host, Shell Hart.
Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Passages from the Heart podcast. I hope that this finds you all doing well, and I hope getting out on the water. As for me, I unfortunately still have yet to splash the boat, and it's not so much for the reasons as I have discussed with you all in the past, although that does still stand, but more so just some family things have come up, which have precluded me from having the time to really tend to the boat and then therefore get the boat in the water to go sailing. But speaking of sailing, I am also following along on some really amazing journeys that I've mentioned before, and I just want to give you just a little reminder of what sort of is shaken out there with some people that are currently adventuring out on the Blue Yonder, if you will. One being Matt Rutherford of the Ocean Research Project, who is doing the circumnavigation of the Arctic as a fundraiser for his nonprofit, the Ocean Research Project. And then also one of my favorite captains, Captain Istvan Kopar, who is sailing his Valiant 42 with the name Surprise. Last I checked, Captain Kopar was somewhere a little northeast of Bermuda, but that's been, I don't know, a few or so days ago. So there are those journeys, and I think that Captain Olivia Wyatt, who is I think just getting ready to depart Namibia in Africa, and I believe is maybe planning to sail across the pond, as they say. I'm not quite sure when, but I think last I checked her blog site, that would be any time now. So let's get on to today's featured guest. That guest is a really incredible young woman from Germany. She's a sea kayaker. And I happened to come across her because I had interviewed another sea kayaker a few months back on my show. And Susan Conrad was that guest. And she happens just to be not only a friend of today's guest, but also the mentor, if you will, of today's guest as well. Her name is Madi Kro. And as I'm recording this podcast, the two of them are having an amazing adventure up in Alaska, paddling for, I believe, about the whole month of July. So I'm really excited to hear back from both of them on this particular journey that they're out there doing right now. So pretty cool stuff. So that all being said, let's dive into this show, and I would really love to thank you all for your continued support of my little humble podcast. Here's Madi. Madi, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hello. How are you? So nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you too. Oh, I'm good. It's really hot here. Is it as hot there, over there too?
I did hear, I heard that, I think it was France that's having a terrible heat wave. So
Yes.
I'm assuming that must be all of Europe then, where you are in Germany, right?
Yes, and actually, I live at the Baltic Sea, where it's usually not that hot, but I think inland it's even hotter.
So I'm in the inland part of the landlocked of the United States, and it's very humid here. That's the thing that I think gets to me. You know, your body just can't cool down because the humidity is just like a swamp in the air. It's hard to explain, but it's very uncomfortable. But at any rate, I realize I did not officially welcome you to the Passages from the Heart podcast. So I want to make sure that I do that. I'm so excited to be able to connect with you because I have, I learned of you from, of course, Susan Conrad, who I also had on this show. Oh gosh, I don't know, a few months or so back, and she mentioned you, and she's talked about you with me because we've since become friends, and she's mentioned you and that you've been working with her, and that you guys are planning this epic journey this summer. And so I'm so excited to talk about all of that and share what that entails with the listeners. But before I do that, I was hoping we could look back in time. This is where I like to usually kick off the podcast to give people a feel for, how did this all come to be in your life where you developed this passion for the water and specifically sea kayaking. In your case, I believe, at least with this journey, but maybe there's something more to the story with your love from water. So would you be able to sort of look back to time and tell us how you discovered your passion for being on the water and also sea kayaking?
Oh, yes, sure. I'd like to do that. So I think I've always been kind of passionate for water already when I was a child. So I grew up more on land, but I used to go to the sea with my parents, and I always loved to be in the water really long, until I was freezing, getting blue fingernails, blue lips, and then they took me out. So
Yeah.
yes, I think maybe that's something that led me there. And for my studies, I actually moved to the city Kiel, which is in the northern of Germany, yeah, close to the Baltic Sea, or it's at the Baltic Sea. And
Oh.
yes, it was. I think I just felt that I want to study there, so I didn't have that many options. I studied a combination of chemistry and economics, and it's only on
Oh,
three
wow.
locations in Germany. Yes, and I was thinking I want to do some water sports, so I started a course in kite surfing. So that was my
Oh,
original attempt. It
wow.
Yes, actually, yes. It wasn't sea kayaking, but I realized as a student it's just too expensive to buy all the gear. So I just took the course and afterwards I quit and I found a sea kayak club in Kiel. So I just went there and soon realized I really like it. And then I bought my own kayak and yeah, then it just started to to get more and more, and I really got addicted to it, to be outdoors, to do trips, to be on the sea, to get to remote places. It was just like, yeah, it just happened, I think. Yes.
That sounds so neat. Was this something that was like did you have I'm assuming you're talking about when you were in university, right? So was there like a team for kayaking? Did you have any sort of competitions or was it like a club that you did these trips with?
Oh, it's a club, and they also did some beginner trainings, so which is really nice. And you can use the kayaks from the club if you're a member. So at first, I was always
Oh, wow.
using those kayaks to test if I like it or not. And when I realized I like it, I bought my own kayak.
What would you say are some of the favorite areas where you like or enjoy sea kayaking in your country?
So, like in everyday life, I like to paddle the Bay of Kiel, and there's another bay which is close to my home. I live a little bit outside of the city. It's called the Bay of Eckernförde. Probably no one knows this of your listeners. And I have two kayaks. One is in one bay, and the other one lies at the other bay. So that's like,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
my everyday kayaking. Yes, it's really nice. And
Uh-huh.
Denmark isn't so far from here. So, like for weekend trips, I prefer to go to Denmark. It's a really nice area. I've just been there last week for 6 days with a friend from Alaska and a German peddler who lives close to the Danish border, who was in Alaska last year as well. And we three met up there.
I feel like you're so lucky to live in Europe because it seems you get to have access to all these, um, parts of that area. Whereas in the States, it's like to get someplace, it's either flying on an airplane or you're looking at a significant drive in a car, several hours, which is one of the things I've learned as I've gotten older in life is it's live where you like to play, I think is what I think I would say. So because I love the water so much, it's really hard where we are because, I don't have access to, a coast like an ocean or bigger water like up at the Great Lakes, for example. But where you are, it seems like it is, you have access to so many other areas you can get to. Although I know probably it wouldn't be easy to take a sea kayak on the train if you wanted to. I hear there's a really great train system in Europe. So have you had any outside of Germany? I'm just curious. In Denmark, have you traveled anywhere with your equipment to paddle in other areas of Europe?
Oh yes, I have. But I always take the car or the ferry. So
Oh,
my first trip, like real sea kayak trip, a multiple day trip. It was in Sweden, and I'm really lucky to live in Kiel because we have a ferry that goes to Sweden. So with two of my friends, we just took the kayaks on the ferry and went to Gothenburg and paddled there. I think it was a 10-day trip or something like that, and I didn't really have equipment. So I just had a really cheap sleeping bag and I borrowed a tent and I am not sure if I had a paddling jacket actually at that time. So I was freezing all the time and but it was such a
oh,
fun trip and I really loved this island hopping and there are some kind of scaries there. And yes, that's
oh.
like one thing where I traveled in Europe, but I've also been paddling around Lofoten Islands. So it took us, I think, 2 or 3 days driving up there. And I've been paddling in the Baltics, like Estonia and Latvia, and I think I also paddled a day in Poland and Åland Islands, which is in Finland. So I saw quite a lot of the north of Europe with the kayak already. Yeah.
That sounds so neat. I just am trying to envision all these different places and how incredible that would be. It's similar to when I think of where Susan lives. I used to live in that area too, actually in the Pacific Northwest, and
Nice.
there's just so much water to explore in that region of the country, and then also in because it's so close to Canada as well, right? So that just sounds so neat. I just wish I could. I don't know if you have pictures of those trips or anything, but if you, in fact, I wanted to ask you that too, Maddie, about some pictures or video footage, if you have any of that, if you have links to all that. And I know we're going to talk about social media and all that later, but I love to be able to include those sorts of things for listeners to sort of take a look at, the pictures or the video footage and kind of combine that with the story that you're sharing with us. It's kind of fun to see that. And I know I would like to see that. I know you mentioned you did some kayaking with, it sounds like with some other people. What are your feelings about kayaking with groups of people versus just having that solitude of being out on the water by yourself? Do you have a preference for one over the other?
Actually, no, I don't. I think I like both, and I think I want both. So it's such a different way of kayaking. Like I really like to share these experiences with other people, have good company, and just make a nice trip. If you are on shore, you just hang around and talk, or maybe have a nice glass of wine in the evening, which is really nice. And I also like to go with others in winter time, and you go also for more challenging conditions. That's another part of paddling together. So that it's a safety part, and you can go for, I wouldn't say really high risk, but higher risk than you would do on your own. But at the same time, yes, I really
So
like.
there's like a little bit more. Do you feel more comfortable pursuing a challenging conditions when you have other people there? Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly. Depending on their skill level. Like if I'm the responsible person, knowing the others have a no, or on a beginner level, it's different for sure. Then I'm the responsible and won't go in challenging conditions, and even not in conditions I would feel safe, but I know they don't feel safe, so it's a different thing. But if we are on the same level and know how to rescue each other, it's always more
Yes.
safe. Yes.
I was just thinking, I was sort of envisioning in my mind challenging conditions, and I can go back to, I've read Audrey Sutherland's books about when she did. I don't know if you've read any of her books, and I
Yes.
know she's a big, yeah, she's Susan's hero, I guess I would say. And so after reading Susan's book, I read Audrey Sutherland's book. And listeners, I'll put links to all those books that I'm discussing in the show notes. But I think for example, Audrey talks about when she would kayak around Molokai, I think it was, in the Hawaiian Islands. I think that's the name of the island. And some of the things that she describes are sound pretty scary to me, just with some of the conditions. And she's was paddling, I think, on the north shore of the island. I don't know if you say this in terms of sea kayaking, like to ditch, like to get out of a scary situation. There's nowhere to tuck into or hide, sort of a thing. And then Susan also, describes some of these challenges in her book, her memoir, the Inside book. And so for you, could you describe for the listeners a challenging experience that you went through, just to kind of paint a picture in words for something that you would describe as or feel was a very challenging situation in your kayak?
Oh, yes, it was actually last year when I paddled the Inside Passage. There's like this area, Cape Caution, around Cape Caution. And the day before, actually, not that really the day where I was going across Cape Caution, there were some storms predicted, and I really started very early in the morning to do a crossing, and everything was fine. And I found a place where I wanted originally to camp. And yeah, finally I found bear tracks, and I knew I have to wait out the storm the next day. And I didn't feel like I want to stay there where are bears around.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
calculated the hours until the storm should come, and I was so okay. It can be okay. I can make it to Bernard Bay. There's a cabin, and it felt so appealing to me to stay in a cabin the next day. And I had, I think, 2 or 3 hours until the storm should hit in, and I was thinking, okay, I just give it a go, and if it doesn't feel good, I can still turn around. But what I didn't know, there are some inlets coming into the sea, and you still have this stretch of open sea, and there was a swell building up, and from the inlets there was a really big tidal flow. So I had really strong currents and a little bit of this tide races, mostly when I had to go around corners. Um, I think in that moment I wasn't afraid, but I didn't feel like I wanted to be there. But in a way, I just had this gut feeling that I will manage it, and the trust in myself, knowing I've been in some other conditions. And I always told myself, like, okay, I'm paddling the kayak which I bought from Susan, and she had been in really worse conditions and she survived. So the kayak will do it and I will do it. So yeah,
Right.
actually, uh, I made it, but yeah, it was quite challenging, and I think it was really also a mental challenge. And I was asking myself afterwards how it would have felt if I wouldn't have been alone, if it would have felt the same or maybe not that bad. Actually, when I hit the ground or landed on shore, the storm came in. So I was really
Oh my
lucky that I
gosh.
managed it. Yes.
Oh my
But
gosh. Yeah, that sounds frightening. I know that's the thing I remember too, now that you bring up the tidal currents. And I remember in her book, she talked about, she, she was saying, I think it was 24 or 28 feet, something crazy. So when she made landfall and she would have to drag the kayak all the way up,
yes,
and I don't know, I'm assuming you guys have some sort of, I don't remember what her source of information was, if she had paper charts or something, or she was using something on a electronic device like a phone or something to tell her how much tide there would be that particular day, so she would know how far elevation wise she needs to be with her camp for the night so that she wouldn't get flooded out or washed away, you
yes,
know?
yes, yes.
I mean,
I
that's the other
know.
thing I think, yeah, that to me, as someone who's just, recreational kayaking on a calm, usually body of inland water, as compared to what you guys do with being out on the ocean and having to contend with, like you were saying, current and tide and all that. It just, there's so many things. I mean, it's just like as a sailor too, I think about, that you have to be so in tune with and aware of and the weather and all of that. So I want to get into more of that stuff with Susan, and your upcoming trip. And I do remember, actually, I bet you that her Instagram post from last summer. I think it, because she mentioned you. I think, and I think that she was talking about perhaps this trip that you just referenced and telling us the story about that challenging moment there. And she was very proud of you, I think, from what I recall, from your accomplishment on that journey last year. I think, right? Is that the same trip?
Yes, exactly. That's the same trip last year. And yes, Susan, she was such a big support on this trip. And I think that's worth to tell the story how we met. It's pretty cool
Yeah,
because I paddled a part of the Inside Passage from Prince Rupert down to Telegraph Cove on Vancouver Island in 2023 with two others. And there were some, yes, I think it's nothing to talk about really like in public, but there were like the team it was a bit difficult with one person. So actually, I couldn't enjoy it as much as I wanted, but I really understood that I love this wilderness, and it was a totally new world for me to be completely remote without anything, and it was so nice. And I knew I want to come back, and it changed a lot for me. And actually, I was thinking, I want to see the Alaska part of the Inside Passage, but I was so afraid to paddle alone because of the bears. And I was
yeah,
struggling to decide if I go there or maybe go for a longer trip in Europe. And then I read Susan's book, and I was like, I felt like, wow, she has the struggles and the same fears, and I could relate to all of her thoughts and feelings. And I was just like, I need to write her a mail. It wasn't like that I was just thinking, okay, I'm seeking for information. It was just a feeling. I really felt, okay, I need to contact this person. And then she replied so friendly, and she started to support me. And then it finally turned out that I bought her kayak, and she was mentoring me. and we stayed in touch all the time on the trip. We are in reach, and in the small towns we usually had a phone call just to see how it's going. And yeah, Susan mentioned synchronicity, and it really feels like that we met because of this. And it's so funny because I started my trip exactly 15 years and one day after she started her first trip along the Inside Passage. So it was really nice. And now we finally found a way to paddle together again in Alaska, it's so nice. I'm really looking forward to this trip, which will start soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't you also depart from the same place that she did too? I thought that you guys both, it was Anacortes, maybe?
Yes, exactly, at Washington Park. And Susan made a send-off party for me. Like her friends made it for her. So she
Uh-huh.
invited people there. And it was so funny because a friend with whom I studied, and she moved to Seattle a few years ago for her PhD. And I haven't seen her for years. And then she came for my send-off party, and she was swimming me off. So when I paddled, she was swimming next to my kayak, and it was so nice. It was really great.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, yeah, because I was actually wondering how someone who lives in Germany had found out about this kayaking going on in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Was it before you read Susan's book that you had an interest in the area, or was reading her book what got you interested in the area?
No, it was before Susan's book. Like it was already before this trip in 2023. I think
Oh, right.
originally,
Okay.
yes. I planned with a friend from Germany. She's in my kayak club, and her friends moved to Canada, I think 25, 30 years ago. And their son is Finn Steiner, who's also a quite popular kayaker in Canada. And we wanted to do a trip in Haida Gwaii in 2020, but there was COVID, so we had to cancel everything. And my friend did this trip from Prince Rupert to Vancouver Island in 2022, but I couldn't join because I just changed my job. So I found another group to do the same trip a year later. And yeah, I really love the area. I love the wilderness, and it's exactly what we do not have in Europe. This wilderness. It's what really makes me coming back. I really love it.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to explore more of that area. I didn't living there for in that region for 10 years. There's still so much that I didn't get to see. It is rich with wildness and wilderness and sea and yeah, I totally I know what you mean. Did you how did you get the kayak there for that 2023 trip then? Is that did you just did you I don't did you actually get it on the plane then, or did you get a different kayak once you got to your location there, or how did that work? Just out of curiosity, I was wondering if you traveled with your own kayak from Germany.
Oh no, my I borrowed a kayak from my friends who live there.
And then I think Susan mentioned that this trip that you're taking with her this summer, your kayak for that trip is already there too, right?
Yes, it's still Prudence. I think she's a famous kayak now, and she's still in Juneau.
Oh, it
So
is Prudence.
yes, it is
Oh,
Prudence.
wow.
It's yes,
Oh,
that's what.
I didn't really connect the dots on that before. That's really cool. Wow.
So I bought Prudence. Yes, yes, Prudence she's still in Juneau. So last year I met Ed in Alaska, and he also hosted another kayaker from Germany, and he lives in Juneau, and he has several kayaks, and he he used to work as a coast guard, and he was happy to have people there. And I think he loves hosting adventures. And yeah, I could leave my kayak with him, and that was a trip in Denmark I was talking about in the beginning. Like with him, he came here to Europe, and the guy Jörg Knorr, whom he hosted, he also paddled in Alaska last year, and we didn't know from each other. I just know that he's writing some articles in Germany about kayaking, and that's how we connected, like through a paddler in Alaska. And now my Prudence is still there, so I will go to Juneau at the 1st of July, pick her up, take her on the ferry, and go to Petersburg to meet Susan.
Can you describe give our listeners sort of an overview about, I'm assuming there's probably all different kinds of sea kayaks too. So I just, for the sake of, for what your boat is like, could you describe her?
Yes, she's a Cetus, which is from PFTH, and it's a medium volume kayak. And I calculated, I think, like we are in meters, I think it's 17 feet if I calculated, long. I don't know exactly how wide she is, maybe 55 to 60
Okay.
centimeters. I don't know what it is in feet, actually. And yeah, she's a carbon fiber kayak, so she's a bit lighter than the kayaks I usually use, which are just fiberglass kayaks. And yeah, she had a good fitting, like Susan did put a foam seat inside. And since we have a similar size, it really fit me well. So the seat was really, really good. And it has like three main hatches where you can store your luggage, like, yeah, or your life for 3 months, what you can say. And yes, it has a lot of space, but for a 3 months trip, like with all the food and all the safety gear you need, it's a lot. And on this trip, I usually took a deck bag for the first days when I resupplied my food, because it didn't fit in into the kayak. So does it give you an idea of about how sea
So
kayaks
it's
look
something
like?
that sits on top?
Yes, exactly, like in a dry bag. And I try to avoid to have something on deck, because yeah, if you have waves, it can either be, yeah, pushed away, or the tipping point is different. So I it's not common to do it on a sea kayak, but in that case, it didn't work on another way. And the kayak is, if it's loaded, it's really stable, more stable than when it's empty, and you can even roll it much better than when it's empty. So I felt very, very safe and stable in the kayak, and it's not really tippy. I think it's a really good kayak for long trips. Like, it doesn't have anything special. It's not like one of a really fast kayak, but it's not really slow. It's not a playboat. It's just like a kayak for long trips with lots of volume. And for me, it was good that it's a carbon fiber version, so I could carry it. Like, you have to carry the kayak every day up until the high tide line. That's a lot of work. So I usually emptied the kayak
Yeah.
completely and then to put it up. So yeah, you get really strong on those trips.
You literally empty it out before you take it up on shore?
Yes, exactly. So I emptied everything. I had IKEA bags and put all the stuff in IKEA bags. Um, yeah, carried them up, then carried the kayak up, and it's quite a process. So we are busy all day. And Susan, I
Yeah, I
we
remember now. I remember Susan talking about that now in her book. I had forgotten, completely forgotten about that part of it, and how much more work that would be to, as you were saying, it's not just moving the boat with all the gear inside of it, because it would be too heavy, but you have to unload all of that. But it's something that you enjoy and you love to do, so it's worth it, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's part of the game. I think that makes it interesting. Like, and you still need to save some energy. So I usually,
Yeah.
before I landed, I knew, okay, maybe I need to check for bears. I need to be aware, and you cannot be completely exhausted when you land because there's actually Susan and I were joking like paddling is the easy part, and then the work starts when you land. So, but sometimes you
Right.
still arrive exhausted, and I usually try to eat something just before I land so that I get the energy to do all the other stuff.
I guess you're always sort of planning ahead of time where you are going to make landfall and camp at the locations along the route, right? It's not like, or do you ever run into a situation where you're planning on a certain location, but then for some reason you're not able to get to it either because of a weather system or is that what you're doing? You're always looking at the maps ahead of time before you depart and you're deciding where you're going to make landfall for each leg of the trip. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, so I in advance I did a lot of spent a lot of time in planning and checking like informations from Susan from other books and put them all together on a chart. And like I put this whole stretch in pieces, like from the small villages, like I had I think 6 or 7 stretches, and I made a rough plan. I want to paddle all the inside passage, and I planned from stretch to stretch, and then I planned from day to day because weather is also influences how you paddle. And sometimes I found a camping place, but I saw a bear track, so I moved on, and I had a quite bad summer with lots of winds, lots of storms and rains. And originally, I wanted to paddle more outside and not the really inside passage. And I had to turn around and change my route completely for one stretch because it was just too bad weather. And that was actually one part where I've been really exhausted because I had really long days, and sometimes I couldn't land and I couldn't find a camping, or one day I couldn't find a cabin which was supposed to be there, so I had to make some kind of emergency camp, and I just had the kayak floating in the water and just set up tent and sleeping bag and let everything floating. And yeah, you never know. You can. It's good just to make all those preparations so you have some fallback options, but you never know because yeah, there might be a bear, there might be a storm, and that's. I think it's also what adventure is
Yeah.
about, that you cannot plan everything. It would be boring if you could plan everything.
Yes. Right. I was just about to ask you that question that was related to that exactly is like, there has to be within that not just a love of the sea and of kayaking and paddling, but just a sense of adventure, right? That is this fuel to give you that, I don't know, desire, that drive to want to do something like this. And especially because I think you did that all by yourself last summer too. Did you not? Or did you have someone with you for part of the time?
Oh no, I was completely solo paddling, yes. And
Yeah,
it was
that's
really,
pretty.
yeah,
Yeah.
really, yeah, changed a lot, I think, inside me. Like Susan wrote in her book, I can relate to that. Um, Getting more self-confident, not doubting my skills so much anymore. And yeah, it was gave me kind of peace with myself, I think, or more peace, let's say that. It was really, it was a really great trip, and also knowing how to deal with those situations. You never know what happens, and just go with the flow. And I think that's something we sometimes lose in our everyday's life because actually we cannot plan our life as well. We just think we can plan it, but it's not like this. And yeah,
Yeah.
that that was really nice. Yeah, and to be in the nature and to be alone in the nature and just feeling like a small part of everything.
Yeah. Wow. That's really incredible. Yeah, I would love to be able to be brave enough, courageous enough to do something like that. In my mind's eye, in my heart, in my soul, I feel like there was a part of me that must have been that type of a person. And now, I mean, you're a young woman. I'm, well past that youthful stage of adulthood. And so for me, I always tend to feel sometimes melancholic, that maybe I might not be able to do something like that because physically I don't know if I could do it. And I'm curious, it's one thing to paddle regularly and build your stamina and strength. And like you were saying, you get stronger when you empty the boat every time you make landfall and have to make camp, and you do get stronger as you do that. But what else do you do in order to prepare for a trip? Like, for example, this trip that you're taking with Susan quite soon here. What is there anything else just aside from paddling itself that you do for cardio or for strengthening to help you and your endurance, like for to have the strength to do something like this? Is there anything else that you do to train?
Actually, I've been training all my life. Like sport is like a really big part of my life. So I like to go running and I bike to work. I paddle a lot for sure. Last year I went to the gym to prepare for the trip, but actually I realized at some point I probably did too much sports. So then you get weaker instead of stronger. So I stopped going to the gym for this trip,
Mm.
but and I haven't paddled that much in the winter time as I used to do. But I think this time, yeah, I will just. I still paddle a lot, and I think that will be for me enough because I know my body will remember all those things very soon. So, since I didn't stop paddling, but I just didn't paddle that long distances the last months. Um, yeah, I think I'm just so used to it that I do not prepare so much. For sure, like last year, I did a lot. I was paddling all through the winter, long distances. Sometimes I came back home, I was just freezing and shaking, and it was dark and cold and wet. But this year, we probably make shorter distances, and we are two people, so we can carry stuff together. So um, I just do my general stuff. Yes.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the body memory thing. It's just kind of like I know what you mean. I grew up riding horses, and then I stopped riding horses when I went to university and got into graduate school and career and all that. And then later in life, I was in my mid 30s. I started riding horses again. And it's just like, everything just felt like I knew where I needed to be when I was on a horse, you know. The only thing is that the difference being that my legs weren't strong like they used to be, but over time I was able to build that back up. But I know what you mean about that body memory thing. It kind of well, and plus you're always constantly doing it too. So it's going to be right there for you. But even if you didn't paddle for 17 years, I'm sure that you could get right back into a sea kayak and you would know exactly still what to do. I am looking at the clock because I know we said, I think I said 30 to 60 minutes, and the time has just flown by. I have a gazillion questions I would still like to ask you, but I want to be respectful of your time, and maybe another time you could come back on the show because I would love to hear about the trip that you're about to take with Susan. And I thought, if I remember correctly, aren't you going to, she will be there for part of it or most of it maybe, but that you would maybe do a leg or so on your own too. Is that right? Or I'm not remembering that right?
Yes, so at first, yes, I would love to come back to his show, and it's a big pleasure for me to be there. And yes, I will
Thank
do
you.
another part. So at first, Susan and I we plan to paddle around Midkov and Kuprianov Island, and afterwards, I'm still figuring out exactly the route, but it's a bit complicated with the ferry systems to get the right schedule regarding to my time frame I have, and I'm thinking about to make another trip from Sitka to Juneau. Originally, I was thinking to go from Petersburg to Juneau, but I would do a stretch which I paddle with Susan double. And the other idea was to go from Juneau to Sitka, but doesn't the ferry schedule doesn't fit really. So I'm still figuring it out, but it will be something around in Alaska, either in the direction of Sitka, maybe Glacier Bay, something like that. And I will have, yeah, I think something like 2.5 weeks for paddling. And afterwards, I want to take the ferry back from Juneau to Bellingham and to see all the part I paddled last year, like except from Skagway. So I'm not going back to Skagway to go down with the ferry. And I think that's would be a nice ending just to see it from the ferry, all the stretch. I paddled in 3 months last year to see it in 3 days.
Yeah, that would be pretty wild to do that.
Yes.
So, with the trip that you're going to be doing this year here, just shortly, because I think you said you're leaving pretty soon here, right?
Yes, yes, I will leave next week. And
Yeah. Are you going to do, I don't know what sort of I think you said Garmin or InReach or something that you were using. So you will have some sort of internet access, but are you using that at all for any sort of social media stuff for people to follow the journey, or is that not something you plan to do?
so I did it last year that I sent a track. I'm not sure if I do it this year, but I will share some thing about the story. So we don't have internet access. We only have satellite phone. And I will
Mm-hmm.
share something afterwards on Instagram, but I probably won't do something during the trip because I just want to be there and enjoy the time. So maybe
Yes.
something in September. And I also think about, but that will be a winter project because I think it takes some time. I want to to write something together and take some pictures for a website, like what you were asking in the beginning, because yeah,
Yeah.
people start to ask me questions, and I think it might be interesting just to put it together so I don't need to answer questions at the same time and maybe just write something about recent trips. Since yeah, people are
Yeah.
interested, I realized, and it's nice. I like to share it and give people a nice experience about my trips.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I know for sure I would be a person who would love to read and see the pictures like I was saying. And I think, it's it is I think as a woman, it's for myself, I feel very inspired to see other women that are out there doing these sorts of projects and journeys. And I love what you just said too about how back when Audrey Sutherland was doing these trips, there was no, Instagram or Facebook or websites, and she just, she could just be, like you said, just to be in the trip itself, to be fully present. And I think that I don't know if you ever hear that expression a lot when people say, I want to be fully present. And I sometimes feel like the meaning has been sort of lost in the shuffle of life because everybody seems to be so focused on the sharing part of what they're doing. And I even realized I'm a little guilty of this myself because I had for sailing, I was doing things like this. And I came to realize that I was so more focusing on where's the camera set up? Am I getting anything that's interesting to people? And then I just I was not fully present. And then I started to feel like this isn't why I'm doing this. I'm not, it is fun to share the story. I get that. And that's part of why I like to do this podcast, because it is a way to get people's stories out there to inspire other people and to, it's interesting, and as I said, I just, I love to see people who put themselves in these challenging situations and come out a stronger a person for it as a result. It's inspiring, but it's a balance. And so I completely agree with what you were saying about how, this will be for you, what you're going to be doing, and you can share later. It doesn't have to be, well, today I'm doing this. And then, it's just,
Yes,
it,
yes, exactly.
yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that sort of thing, because I do feel like, gosh, there's so much pressure on people to, be producing content all the time. It's just like, just do what you love to do. And then, you can do that later. You don't have to just always do it right now. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just my
Yes,
personal take on it.
I totally
But
relate to that. Yes. And
yeah, I don't know.
like,
Yeah,
oh,
I could go on and on about
yes.
that because I have a lot of feelings about it. But
Yes.
but at any rate, so let's do this, Maddie. When you are free again sometime later this year, and you are feeling like you might want to do some more sharing, I would love to have you back on the show to hear about your journey that's upcoming. And I don't. I know you said you're going to be working on a website. So as far as how people, if they want to learn more, or if there are people who might want to get in touch with you, if they had a question or were looking for advice, just like how when you reached out to Susan, would you, what would you be able to provide people with some ways to follow you or get in touch with you?
I think the easiest way is via Instagram.
If you could send that to me so that
Yes.
I'll put that in the show notes so people know where that is. And then I can see it too. I'm not really a big Instagram user. I do some things, but I would definitely like to use it to see your pictures and learn more about what you've been doing with that. So that would be fabulous.
Oh, yes, I will do that.
Now,
And there's some sections about the last year's trip. So after each section, I posted a little summary. So if people are interested, they can, yeah, see like a little bit of the Inside Passage trip last year.
yeah, that would be great. Uh, and before we close, I just wanted to give you the opportunity, if there was something that we didn't talk about that you wanted to tell listeners, is there anything that you would want to say?
Yes, think it goes in the direction what you just said. Just do what makes you happy and take heart to do it.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. And like I said, I just was looking through my notes, and there are so many other things that I would love to ask, but we can save that for the next time. And we can look forward to, um, I guess for you, it will be reliving the trip that you're just about to embark upon. I'm just so excited for you and for Susan too. It's going to be, I'm sure, just absolutely fantastic, and just get to see all the wildlife and experience just different conditions. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. So hopefully you will be willing to come back on board and we can talk again.
Oh, yes, I'm looking forward to that.
You have a very, very safe journey over to the Pacific Northwest from where you are now in Germany, I'm imagining. And just I want to express my deepest gratitude to you, Maddie, for taking some time out of your day to speak with me and to share your story with our listeners. It's fascinating. I'm like I said, as soon as we get off, if you can email me that Instagram link, I'm gonna take a look at that. I can't wait.
Yes, yes. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay. Thank you, Maddie. You have a wonderful day or
You
evening.
too. Yes, thank
Okay.
you too.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you are enjoying my podcasts, please consider following and or subscribing to my show. Your support truly means the world to me, as well as inspires me to keep bringing you stories from others out there with a passion for getting out on the water. Until next time, fair winds.